All right, the last solving equations that we're going to cover is when you're solving equations that have variables on both sides. So everything we've done so far has been variables on one side of the equation. Now you're going to see problems that have variables on both sides. So equations with variables on both sides. Okay, make sure you write today's date in the top corner. All right, so the steps to solve are very similar to what we've done before. You want to simplify each side of the equation if possible. Which means you distribute and combine, or distribute or combine. So if there's any of those things you need to take care of, you can take care of those first. The second step now, when you have variables on both sides, is you want to use inverse operations to move the variables on one side. Excuse me, onto one side. So we'll simplify each side of the equation, then use inverse operations to move the variables to one side of the equation, and then you just solve the remaining pieces. And then last but not least, you always want to check your solution. So let's take a look at some examples. So our first example here is 8x plus 17 equals 2x plus 35. So here's what I mean by variables on both sides. We have variables on both sides of the equation. So I need to move those variables to one side in order to solve this equation. So the way I like to think of this is like the equal sign is kind of like a wall. It separates the two sides of the equal sign, or the two sides of the equation. So I want to move my variables together by undoing using the inverse operations. And I can choose either one to move. So I can move the 2x to the left, or I can move the 8x to the right. I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides, because here you can see now we undid the 2x just like we've been doing. And so now here I get 6x plus 17 equals 35. Okay, so now I'm just going to solve like you normally solve. We undo subtracting 17 on both sides. We get 6x equals 18. Divide by 6. X equals 3. So the only new step here is that we have to move the variables to the other side of the equation in order to solve. Let's try another example with these ones. Let's say I gave you 7k plus 8 equals 2k minus 37. So we're going to do the same idea where we have to move the variables together. So I want to undo and use inverse operations to move the variables together. So here again, I'm going to undo the 2k by subtracting 2k on both sides of the equal sign. And remember, this is a wall that separates both sides. So I get 5k plus 8 equals negative 37. And now I can take my steps to solve. Subtract 8 on both sides. 5k equals negative 45. Divide by 5. K equals negative 9. All right, let's look at 2 more examples, and this time we're going to have some simplifying to do. So let's say I gave you this equation. Negative 5x minus 16 plus 3x equals negative 23 minus 9x. So remember, if you can simplify in one side of the equation, you should simplify first. So when I say that, remember there's a wall here. So I'm looking at both sides of the equations. The right-hand side, I can't do anything to. There's no like terms here. But on the left-hand side, I do have some like terms on this side, the negative 5x and the 3x. So I can simplify this before I do my solving. So negative 5x plus 3x is negative 2x minus 16 equal to negative 23 minus 9x. So now that I've simplified and combined like terms, I'm going to think of my wall again, and I want to move my variables to one side. So here I can use the inverse operation and add 9x to both sides. So negative 2 plus 9x is 7x, minus 16 equals negative 23. I can add 16 to both sides then and solve like normal. So 7x equals negative 7. And now I'm just dividing by 7 on both sides. So x equals negative 1. All right, last problem. This one we're going to have to do some distribution. Okay, so I've got 4 parentheses k minus 2 equals 2 parentheses k minus 9. So in order to solve this problem, I have to distribute first. So I distribute by multiplying, so that becomes 4k minus 8 equals 2k minus 18. And then remember, we're looking at each side of the equation. So I want to undo by bringing the 2k over by subtracting it. So I have 2k minus 8 equals negative 18. Now I solve like normal. 2k equals negative 10. Divide both sides by 2. K equals negative 5. So that's solving with variables on both sides of the equations. You first check to make sure if there's any distribution or combining like terms. Then you move and use inverse variables or inverse operations to move the variables to one side. And then you solve like normal. So we're going to keep practicing with these types of equations.